Percy with an early run, he's onside this time! It's 1-1!
Schürrle, it's 7!
It's Mario Götze! What a goal! What a goal to win a World Cup!
I don't know who set the stars in motion, but the idea that on a full day whereby I am celebrating the day of my birth for the 32nd time, technically 31st. I'm not sure how many of the earlier ones I actually celebrated. This is not my birthday actually, so you don't need to get on me with all your presents and all the good wishes, but at the end of the day, just know that I am out celebrating today. It's going to be a long one, and it's going to be a long one in the sense of there are 4 World Cup games going on today, and 2 have already gone. I'm going to try and be better at actually repeating the scores as I get on, but you have to understand that specifically today, as the day goes on, I may be more and more intoxicated, and so the analysis is going to be pretty interesting. So we're halfway down, and I don't just mean in terms of how many beverages I've had of the big stack that I've got lined up. We've already had France 2, Australia 1, and Iceland 1, Argentina 1. Now let's get to the first thing that needs to be spoken about first, which is Mark Lawrenson. There is nothing I could say that would have in any way be original, or I like to try and be creative and outside the box with my analysis sometimes, but when it comes to Lawrenson, there's just no going there, because everything you can say has already been said, and his almost ruining of the France-Australia game is very, very frustrating, and his one-man vendetta, I'm not quite sure if Pavard actually slept with Lawrenson's wife, or at what point he burnt down his house, but my word, did he have a vendetta against him. And if you're a centre-back by trade playing at right-back in a game where not many of the actual rest of the squad are playing too well, then, you know, I'm not quite sure why he was being singled out too much. But Loro is, and Soloro does. And as far as the game itself is concerned, obviously the big controversy revolving around the VAR, and I think the frustrating thing for me is that there was a lot of people paid a lot of money that don't seem to understand what's going on and even attempt to process it in a coherent way, which is, I'm not talking about the referees, I'm talking about the way it's talked about, the commentators, the pundits, which is the idea of, yes, on first view, I thought that the tackle was completely clean and there was no penalty, and when the referee gave it initially, I was a bit like, oh, hello, what's he seen that I haven't? The more you see it, the more it looks like a penalty, and the first thing I would say is, if that isn't given, if VAR does not exist, then we would spend a good 10 to 15 minutes talking about, oh, should he have given that, should he have not? Referee's had a look, he's decided to give it, I think that's fair. I mean, Australia, and I can see why you would say that it sort of doesn't hang on the same sort of thread as the natural flow of the game and this and that, but realistically speaking, the biggest critics of VAR right now today are just decided they hated it months ago, and they've got no real opinion to give other than that they've already made their mind up. Australia get back in it. A crazy decision by Umati to handball that. He's even actually took the piss out of it on Instagram, which on one hand is like, yeah, fair play to the guy for having a sense of humour. On the second hand, it's like, yeah, did you get away with one? And I mean, France, with their collection of players like a DC Universe film, because they've got all the names, they just can't put it together in any way coherently. And I was expecting big things from them, and they're going to have to really, really change a lot, style, formation, pretty much everything you could possibly name. They throw it at a wall, it's there. As far as Australia are concerned, I would say that they're going to struggle, and this performance was huge from them, and the effort they put in, and to get away with losing, slightly harsh. But the one thing I would say is, if they don't score that penalty, when are they going to score? How are they going to score? I mean, maybe you could argue that Denmark and Peru offer less of a threat, so you can maybe throw more forward, but I'm still struggling. I said before the tournament started, I'm still struggling to see where their goals are coming from. The second game, Iceland, Argentina, wow. Talk about a very a same sort of result in the sense of one big side needs to do better, but again, like, you give Australia credit for that performance against France. What a performance for Iceland. It does veer off into the territory of being patronising, I'm going to try not to, but my word, there's all the credit in the world there. And Argentina, ultimately, I think it's really underestimated, and I think France had this to a certain degree in the Australia game, how hard it is to actually break down 11 men. And I'm not saying that like they're hard done by all this or that, or the criticism that they're getting isn't of note or worthy, because they need to do better. If they want to win the World Cup, both France and Argentina will need to do better. But I don't think we should be condemning both of them as the worst sides we've ever seen just yet. And speaking of which, obviously the comparisons between Messi's performance today and Ronaldo's performance last night, I mean, night and day in terms of actual individual performances, but realistically speaking, they both only got point out of the first game. And the last thing this World Cup needs, when we've actually had quite a good spark to it so far. We've had the game last night, which was fantastic. We've had drama in pretty much every match, something contentious, this, that, the other. Argentina actually should have had a second penalty potentially on the VAR. The whole question of when the referee decides to go for it and when he doesn't, so that's up in the air. The last thing we need to do is bog this down with a simple and straightforward argument that cannot be solved between Ronaldo and Messi, and I hope that doesn't become the case. What I'm going to do is hand it over to me in the future, and me after a few more beers, the Peru-Denmark game coming up, and you'll see him on the other side. Well, the games have continued, the beers have continued. I am joined, finally, by people that will actually be prepared to actually be on audio with me. One you will know from the Prememento Podcast, and older listeners from Trolls on Sunday, if we've got any left, if they're not dead yet, fair play. And one you will know from the wrestling podcast Beyond the Beermat. I can't even say his name because he won't let me say his name because he doesn't want to be introduced.
Wagwan.
Indeed. What is a guan? That's a question for the ages. With that in mind, we just watched the Peru versus
Denmark,
yeah. We have been at it for quite a while today, so forgive me if I don't necessarily remember who's doing the footballs. The game was sort of hinged on first half, second half of a VAR decision in the first half by penalty, and then the guy misses, and then everyone cries around it. A question I want to ask is, did you see this, by the way, Baz?
What, the VAR penalty?
No, not necessarily the penalty, but the reaction to when he missed it afterwards.
It was a shit penalty.
Yeah.
This is
a good conversation to have, actually, now that we've got everyone here, because I believe I'm looking directly in the direction of my direction that people can't see in front of me.
Wagwan.
Yes, again, someone earlier talked about the Messi penalty being a genuinely terrible penalty. A terrible penalty is a penalty that doesn't even hit Rose Edge, and this is what we got in the Peru game. That was not great. That was genuinely terrible. And then basically what happened, I don't know if you see this, is that after the half-time whistle went, the whole Peru squad went to the guy, and the guy was like basically crying. And it's like, this is game one, you've just missed a penalty. Even game one's not done yet. Like, why are you like this upset? And it made me feel like, well, you're definitely going to lose now. And that's transpired what happened.
Yeah, spoiler alert, they lost.
As far as Denmark versus Peru is concerned, it's very much a sort of...
It was important for Peru.
Oh yeah, it was after the Argentina-Iceland game.
This is their first appearance in 36 years, Stu.
It is.
It means a fucking lot.
It does.
Even if they miss penalties, it means a lot, yeah?
Like, genuinely.
Let the man cry.
After game one, no. After game three, yes. If they're knocked out, then let the man shed as many tears as Ronaldo does on a daily basis when he wakes up and realises he's not Lionel Messi.
Ronaldo scored his penalty though.
Remind me again which team won.
Football.
Football
Yay!
one, yes.
Football!
Go Footballs.
World Cup. Basically, if this wasn't a farce already, we've got one game to go. That's Croatia-Nigeria. Let's see how the rest of this evening goes on. So we finally got there, so we survived, so I am still standing. I'd like to say congratulations to me, but there are congratulations to France, there are congratulations to Iceland, there are congratulations to Peru, there are congratulations to Denmark, and there are congratulations to Croatia, because we've had 4 games. We've got there, and the hilarious thing is that as you plot this through as a sort of time deficit, you will maybe just potentially be able to trace the sort of alcoholism of my sentence. But that being said, we are 4 games in, we are 4 games done, we are 3 days into the World Cup, and what basically we've had is an absolute clusterfuck of a day. And let's be said, on the last game of day 3 was Croatia 2, Nigeria 0, and I think what's happened here is very much sort of a similar but sort of extensive episode of what happens in the Denmark and Peru game, in the sense of a side that you thought was going to win won against a side that you thought had a chance that could potentially put up an upset, and you have to extrapolate this and that and that and that. And yes, there were VAR, there were this and that, and all I'm going to say is I was thinking about this actually yesterday when the Portugal game took place, that we can stress over these idea of these single moments that we've seen over the last 12 hours in these 4 games, that one moment affects the game. Penalty scored, or a penalty missed, or a foul given, or a foul missed, or in terms of VAR, like the France game specifically, like something given and something not given may necessarily change the whole context of the game. What I want to know genuinely, and what I think I know, but I feel like I'm speaking for people that I don't speak for, is the player's point of view. And I want to go back to Spain and Portugal in this. When you're going into the Spain dressing room at half-time, a 2-1 down yesterday, none of the Spain players are taking the narrative or taking the idea of like, oh, we're 2-1 down, Ronaldo this, that, the other. And then fast forward to the end of the game, Ronaldo scores the goal at the end of the game. I don't think any of the players then are going, oh, Ronaldo this, Ronaldo that. In something very personal, it becomes down to the idea of what you do in the moment you're given the chance, which is really weird when we hone in on players and moments and go, oh, this guy's amazing because he did this in this moment, and this guy's terrible because he did this in this moment, when I think if you're playing the game, like if I'm Suarez against Egypt, I'm not thinking about the chances I've missed. If I'm Griezmann today, I'm not thinking about the chances that have happened. If I'm Pogba's a perfect example. Like, you're not going, oh, what's this, what's my overall reaction, this, that and the other, and then you end up sort of being the winner without really doing anything. And I feel like very much we try and sort of create the narrative or craft the narrative from a really bizarre, the idea of the end result. And yes, that's fair enough, but I'm not sure if that works at all, because the Croatia 2, Nigeria 0, it was very much a sort of almost a set in stone game. And then you go before that, the Denmark and Peru game, and then you look at a result of Iceland and Argentina, and it very much feels like, oh, hang on, this is the anomaly, this is this is that. And it's all about moments, and the moments aren't in one game and not in another. The moments are in every game. The moments are like if the first goal in the Croatia-Nigeria game, that there's a lot of things going on there. Like if that goes in, and in the Peru game, if your man scores the penalty and doesn't, well, fluff the rest of it. And I really don't want to get on top of him, because apparently he's being held to the weight of his whole country's tournament. But if you know what I'm saying, like, this is one game in, and because of the VAR, we've been obsessed with this whole idea of moments create matches. And I've said it before, I'll say it again, moments do create matches, but everyone on that pitch has created that moment for its existence. And whatever happens after, happens after. But whatever happens to create that moment, everyone's involved. It's not one person. Whether the person takes the penalty, misses the penalty, does the penalty or not. Like the Messi penalty in the Argentina-Iceland game, I mean, who's to say if Argentina score that goal, Argentina win the game? You would say the odds are that they do, but that's not necessarily the case. Either way, I'm too drunk to carry on speculating. I will continue to drink for the rest of the night. Thank you very much. We have been 4 games in. We are 3 days in. This has been the Beermat World Cup podcast. Thank you for listening. Goodbye for now.